Thank you for joining us today, Sean, with Prep Advocates Unleashed, our newest series over at Prep for All, where we talk to prep users and advocates about the joys of being on prep, the challenges of navigating prep access, and just the climate we're in and how that impacts all of the work that we do as both advocates and prep users. So thank you for joining us. You're bi-coastal, right?
I am bicoastal, not bisexual, but I am bicoastal. And thank you so much, A, for having me today and for just all the incredible work you guys do.
Thank you. And Sean is also a part of Prep for All's Prep Users Union. Thank you for being a part of that and always being such a great voice. You even had an article published recently in the body. Want to tell us a little bit about what that article was about?
Of course, of course. I wrote this article kind of leading up to the ruling in the Supreme Court in the Braidwood versus Kennedy case about PrEP access and the Affordable Care Act. I'm sure so many people watching this might know, but this is a case that started in Texas where this group of small businesses didn't want to cover PrEP and didn't feel that they were morally obligated to offer insurance that offers PrEP coverage. Then it
On
moved
religious grounds.
on religious grounds, and then it moved into the constitutionality of the ACA appointments and the legality of those clauses for preventatives, not just including PrEP, but other things that, you know, related directly to cancer or statins or a slew of other things. So this was a really important case for me. I've been watching it for years. As we have seen, the Supreme Court has a strong impact on everyday access for everyday people. Roe v. Wade has certainly affected many parts of the country. And this case was top of mind for me for years, largely because I think PrEP is a life-saving pharmaceutical. I think it is a game changer in the fight against HIV and AIDS. And it is quite possibly the best thing I've ever done for myself. I wrote this article because not only am I gay, I also have a disability. I have a cerebral palsy, and I went through a lot of surgeries and operations and physical therapies when I was a kid. So I wanted to write from this perspective about feeling unsafe and insecure in your body. Not just, I don't like the way my body looks, I don't like the way I walk, whatever. I wanted to really talk about what it feels to feel threatened in your own physicality. And as a person with a disability, I learned that very, very early what it is to feel unsafe, to feel unsturdy, and to feel insecure. And when I mean insecure, I mean ungrounded. I don't just mean I don't like the way I look. And then what that was like, learning that I was gay and having those fears that so many gay, bisexual, queer men my age grew up with. So I don't know how many people the article reached. My hope is maybe some and maybe more in the future. But I wanted to really write about the gift that preventatives can be, the assurance that they can offer so many people that grew up terrified of intimacy and sex and connection.
Wow. And
Yeah.
and just to kind of offer like that full perspective of what prep means to us. When did you first learn about prep and when did you decide to get on it? Kind of told us a little bit about like the motivation for your
Yeah,
advocacy, but what did it mean like personally to get on it for you and how was that process?
of course. So I think I first learned about it in the early 2010s. I will give you some background here. I was a very late bloomer, not very late, I guess just on the later side. I didn't kiss a boy till I was 19. And I wasn't intimate with anyone until I was about 21, and that was just oral. And I was so scared every time I went near a guy of even kissing them sometimes. I was so scared of contracting things because, again, I grew up in what I like to call like the Joey DiPaolo generation, where we were just told, like, if you have sex, you're going to get AIDS or pregnant. Like, it's just the only way it's going to go. And I was so terrified, and it was really weighing on my life that I couldn't make these connections. I didn't feel comfortable being intimate with people or taking it to that next level. And if I ever, when I did start having sex, there was always fear around it. There was always, always fear. I was very careful. I was using protection, but there was still so much fear. And I learned about this probably around 2012 or so. I had heard little things about people I know that were starting this medication. I didn't know much about it, and I didn't know if I was ready to explore that at that point. A friend of mine, my friend Charlie, started telling me about PrEP maybe 4 years, 4 or 5 years ago. He said, I'm on it. It takes a lot of the anxiety away. It takes the edge off of things. It makes you feel like you have that extra level of protection with whatever you end up doing. And I was like, let me think about it. Let me think about it. He kind of nudged me to get on it. I spoke to my practitioner. I literally had to, you know, Google Descovy with him, which is fine because at least he knew about Truvada. But and I got on it in I want to say 2022,
Okay.
2022.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's been a bit of a journey, but I think we all have that journey where, I was working in the HIV field at the time, so I was going out and talking about the benefits for PrEP
Yeah. Yeah.
and still trying to. I found out about PrEP in 2014 when the CDC released the first set of guidelines for physicians to prescribe it, and I
Yeah.
remember walking into the clinic to see my provider and bringing like that paperwork because she had never heard of PrEP, but it took
Right.
me a year to actually go out in the community and talk about it to kind of convince myself, like, wait, if you're talking to people about it, you're
Hmm.
and you are in community with these people, like, this is something that can benefit you as well. So
Yeah.
definitely it's that journey. It's not a decision that most of us wake up in the morning and decide, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go get on PrEP. It's
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
difficult than like condom outreach because you have to you're engaging the medical system. You're not just like getting condoms out of a bucket at the barber shop or the nightclub. So it's different because you're having to engage with the medical system oftentimes for a lot of us for the first time. So
Mhm. With that, there is that level of responsibility that you have to take with it. Like, you got to make sure you do take it every day. And I actually text two of my friends every day and say, I took my medication. Took my medication. They probably don't want to hear from me anymore, but that's my way of, just checking it off my list. Um, but what's so interesting, and I'm not a scientist and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but when I was in school, again, I told you I was very, very fearful when I was younger. And I remember there was a series in my senior year. Uh, I hooked up with someone, only oral, for a few seconds, and I was convinced that I had HIV. I was convinced. I was convinced. And I went to the clinics and I got multiple tests that I spent money on out of pocket. And a lot of them, again, I also wanted to write this article for the body because I know funding is a huge question, especially around HIV. And PrEP is one strong leg and strong foundational element that we need to keep funding. But also, these clinics are lifesavers. Like, when I was in there really fragile and really alone and felt that I couldn't go to my parents, I didn't feel comfortable going to a primary care physician. I didn't really know who to talk to. These people were seasoned clinicians and social workers who sat me down, talked to me about the very low probability of contraction because I wasn't really doing anything high risk, and really walking me through any options and educating me. And I think that in tandem with the medication, these clinics are saving, and they are lifelines for many people.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Actually, that was my next question. With all of the threats to community-based organizations who do outreach clinics and health departments, um,
Yeah.
threats to that funding and infrastructure right now, what
Hmm.
would the impact on your community be without those resources? A lot of people are finding empowerment and PrEP. And so without those resources to help us navigate, like what would that
Yeah.
impact be like on your community?
Here's something that I think is really important. For a long time, HIV, eradicating it, preventing it, everything under that umbrella was not a bipartisan issue. And we shouldn't lose that. This shouldn't be a
Hmm.
partisan issue. And it's very interesting because I grew up on Long Island. And I'll be honest, politically, it's a little bit diverse. We have some people who lean more left, some people who lean more right. But most people that I know from my community that I grew up around would not support cuts to something like this, especially when the science is moving at a pace that is astronomical and beyond our wildest dreams. The politics can't fall behind. We have to stay aligned with it. And there are Republicans and Democrats who, believe it or not, love the queer people in their lives and wouldn't want to see this happen. And it's important that they know how essential these preventatives are and these clinics are, because I know what you guys do at Prep for All. You work to get this medication and this education out to people that might not know about it. And there are still so many people that don't know about their options, and lives can really be changed. And not only that, it's cost efficient and effective to put someone on a medication rather than to watch them wither away and struggle with a virus that is luckily more treatable than it's ever been. And maybe if we get the right funding and we move things in the right direction, even curable.
And you bring up a good point that these cuts are not just to staffing and direct services, but we're also experiencing cuts to research when we're making so many groundbreaking
Yeah,
advances right now. So we don't want to we want to continue to push to fund direct services and clinics for PrEP and education and awareness, but we also want to make sure that we're funding the research, not just, the medical research and the social science research. We want to
absolutely.
know how we can advance the science. We want to know how we can what works at getting it to communities that are disproportionately impacted. So yeah, you're
Absolutely.
bringing that. That's really a good point. Just we're making so many advances, and these funding cuts will only slow that down and
Yeah.
send us backwards. So,
Had I known prep was an option, or have this had this been around when I was a kid, I might have not been so terrified, and I might have not lost all those nights of sleep, or sat opportunities out, or been more timid in dating and things like that. So I think all these things really matter.
and that's one of the points that I often make when I tell people about PrEP. It's not just about your sexual health, it's about your
Yeah.
mental and emotional health. What would a national PrEP program mean for you and people in your community?
I think it would be huge because I think there's a lot of confusion around navigating insurance, and state by state can be kind of a
Mhm.
little different. Luckily, my permanent residency is California, and they have the health insurance that the state offers is pretty strongly encouraging of PrEP access and PrEP usage. And I am able to manage my prescriptions there. And then luckily I work with CVS, which is, I call it, part of the trifecta, the CVS, Target, and Starbucks. That's my own version of heaven. If you've ever been to one, you understand. But CVS, they will ship your prescriptions all over. I'm sure there's tons of pharmacies that offer that. But the access is really, really important. And there are some people, I think many people imagine um, the LGBTQ community living in mostly urban areas, as adults. But that's not 100% true. There's a lot of people that live in areas that are more rural and might not have as much, accessibility. And it's something we all have to work towards because, again, HIV prevention, HIV, hopefully at one point eradication and access to medication shouldn't be a partisan issue and it shouldn't be a state by state issue. Um, Everyone should have access to it. I think that there are enough versions of it that can offer affordable options. And not only that, hopefully, as with this latest case, it still remains no charge. I think that's really important. I think there shouldn't be barriers to it, no matter what your income is, no matter what your job status or insurance coverage status is. It should be the key and
Or
the
what state you're in.
or what state you're in. It should be pushing accessibility to it because it is a game changer. It's a game changer. And, I actually want to talk about something. I have someone I know, he contracted HIV during COVID. And actually, I have done some research and I found that COVID was a time where there was a little bit of an uptick because so many resources were depleted, because so many testing sites and resources that were usually allocated to HIV were, I don't want to say replaced, but COVID gained a huge priority and a focus.
And labs were backed up because the same labs that were processing these COVID results were also
Yeah,
processing STI results and other labs
exactly.
needed for PrEP access. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I remember working in a clinic and where it would usually be about a 2 week wait to get your labs back from the state lab, it turned into 3 to 4 weeks.
And, that's why testing is still important. One thing that I think should be made super clear to everyone who doesn't know much about PrEP or who might know about PrEP is that when you are on PrEP, you are being tested 4 times a year for HIV and a long list of other things. So your health is being monitored and your awareness, your sexual health awareness is more attuned and more keen than it would be without it. You're being tested at least 4 times a year. You're going out into the world knowing your status on not only HIV, but so many other things. And, for a long time, awareness and testing was the greatest tool we had. Today, PrEP is, in my opinion, the greatest tool we have.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing so much about your personal experience, your advocacy, what it means to your community. We really enjoy having you. Always chat. I really always enjoy chatting with you.
I enjoy chatting with you.
Yeah. So thank you. And check out again if you want to see more videos from our Prep Save series or our Prep Advocates Unleashed series, visit prepforall.org/prep saves, where you can see Sean's video and many others talking about the benefits to PrEP, the challenges to accessing PrEP, and why we have to stay in the fight to continue to fight for PrEP access. So thank you again, Sean.